Hi, my name is Brett Linkletter, CEO and founder of Misfit Media, the best damn restaurant marketing agency on the planet. Here at Misfit, we help restaurant owners grow and scale their business through strategic online marketing practices. Right now, you're listening to our podcast, Restaurant Misfits, where we'll discuss all things related to restaurant marketing, management, and everything else in between growing a restaurant business. This podcast is also brought to you in collaboration with Total Food Service. For over 30 years, Total Food Service has provided the restaurant and food service industry with exclusive interviews to the latest news on products, trends, associations, and events. You can sign up for a free monthly subscription by visiting totalfood.com today. And from all the misfits over here, we hope you enjoy the show. Cheers. In this episode, I interview Chef Brian Lewis, who is an incredible chef, has years and years of experience, has had so much success, and as of recently has just leveled up to an owner of now going on 4 locations. He's got 2 different restaurants. One is called The Cottage, and the other one is a Japanese concept called Oko. In our interview, we discuss a number of topics from work-life balance between managing, having a family with kids at home during the pandemic and homeschooling, while also being an owner in the restaurant industry. We talk about hiring and training tips. We talk about how Chef Brian has moved from the chef role into the ownership role and the kinds of changes he's had to make along the way. We talk a lot about how being a chef is like being an artist, and then being the owner is more so like being the art dealer. A lot of amazing topics I think you're absolutely going to love and enjoy. And so without further ado, let's dive right in. Brian, how are you doing?
Doing great. How are you, Brett?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. Obviously, we're nearing the end of Q1 here in 2021. Obviously, last year was pretty hectic for our industry. How about you? How have things been for you in your restaurants?
Yeah, to say the least, hectic. You know, I'm super blessed and grateful for the way that it all, the test that it put us to, and how we all got through it as a restaurant group of 3, and now soon to be 4 restaurants. About 75 employees, that staff members that were just honestly amazing, and all worked so incredibly well together. And I can't believe how much we pulled together.
Awesome. Well, hey, I'm glad to hear that. I mean, blessed and grateful. Those are 2 words that I haven't heard most people say about the pandemic. So that's fantastic for you guys. Yeah.
You know, it's less even like the economics of it, because we've certainly had our challenges there, and it's been just the fact that, you know, it's just many factors that I can sit here, you know, just over a year to date kind of thing, and reflect back, and, you know, grateful for how I kind of was able to show up, and how my staff showed up, physically and otherwise, obviously, in really just having, you know, from the very beginning, and this may sound cliche, but every file that I had assigned to like the pandemic, whatever we were doing, it was just simply called Adapt and Overcome. And really, you know, it's the, you know, with, you know, obviously with compassion for our fellow workers and for our guests. And it brought out so many great qualities of, honestly, that I found in myself. I don't know if they're great, but qualities I'm proud of, and my staff, you know, whether
100%.
You know,
I think when things get tough too is also when you see if people's true character, right? It's like what is the level of stress someone can take? What are the true characters that are going to come out in these stressful times? And that's what really makes us stronger, I think, together as a team, right?
totally.
I mean, even for our company, right, Misfit Media, we're a marketing agency, you know, and same thing with us. We only service restaurants, so we felt it, you know, just as bad. I mean, we lost probably half our clientele at the beginning of the pandemic. But, you know, what I would say about it is the experience, the team coming through on the other side. Oh, man, are we close now? Have we been through hell and back together? You know what I mean? So it is interesting. It kind of, it bonds people. It connects people. And you see the best or the worst of people, I think. You know what I mean?
For sure.
Brian, for everyone who's just learning about you for the first time and maybe seeing you for the first time today, Can you tell us a little bit just about yourself in general and how you and about your two restaurant concepts? I know you have the cottage and then is it OKO, right?
So it's Oko. Yeah.
Oko. Okay, perfect. Oko and the cottage. Yeah, tell us about your restaurants.
So, I'm a Westchester native from New York. Traveled the country most of my career, California, New York City, did a time in Europe, and landed back here in Connecticut about 12, 13 years ago. Headed up the Bedford Post Inn with Richard Gere, and spent a lot of time really kind of advancing from just being a chef, not just, but from the role that I've known for since I was a child, cooking just in the kitchen, to really expanding outward toward ownership, which is an entirely different game, which I love and I'm grateful for. So at any rate, I ended up in '08. I think it was Eric. I can't remember the years. Not '08, excuse me. 16 or 2015, opening the cottage in Westport, which was a real departure from the Bedford Post Inn, which was a really a rather large kind of very big budget project, relay and chateau that I was very proud to be part of and spearhead. And then I ended up, taking on this small restaurant that a very well-known chef in town who I respect a lot, Bill Tavey, had this place called The Farm, which one thing came to another, and he was looking to sell it, and it was half the size of what the cottage is now. It was a tiny little, I guess, 32-seat restaurant. Just the kind of thing that a chef who's ready to roll their sleeves up and just cook their butts off, cook their hearts out, like I was and am. I dove in. I have one partner. We went in. We grabbed this small space, knowing we had next door to a barbershop that we had our eyes on to expand if and when that came available.
Amazing.
Long story short, we were in for 3 or 4 months of just, again, me and 3 other people just cooking day and night. Like, that was it. A staff of 4. We got a killer review from the Times, which kind of sealed our fate in a really nice way. And then just kept going, expanded to that next door, the barbershop, which we added a beautiful bar, and really changed both the ability to service our guests the way that they should be. It took away all the confinements of such a small space. Of course, changed the economics, and we could really grow and become that much more profitable and such, which allowed me to then pursue our next endeavor, which was a passion I've had for quite some time, which was a Japanese inspired restaurant.
Amazing.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So Brian, you said something right there. You said, advancing from just a chef to ownership. I thought that was interesting because it's for me as an agency, I have clients that we service that are same position as you. We're chefs became owners. I have clients that honestly 0 restaurant experience, had some career in finance or whatever the heck it was, and then gets in the restaurant space. They're 2 totally different owners. You know what I mean? Yeah. What would you say? I mean, do you feel like, what's weird about this for me is I've heard people say there's advantages and disadvantages to both, right? I hear the guy in finance say, well, I'm not a chef, but I know the numbers and this and that. So I'm a great business owner. And I hear the chef say, well, these guys don't know anything about food. So how can they run a restaurant business? What are your thoughts on this? Because I think it goes there. It's an interesting question, I know, but I see it all the time.
How many days do we have for this interview?
What's that?
How many days do we have for this interview? I'm joking. So
yeah.
I've run the seen many, or at least both sides of it. First of all, for years, for decades that I've been in this business, it's been a very almost front of house led business. Service and the money seemed, from my lens anyway, growing up sous chef in New York City and California and chef de cuisine, all these different roles, that I was never in the ownership capacity, but I'd always feel the dynamic and kind of understood where the real leadership per se was. And that has shifted dramatically, lots of factors, ever since, in my view, Food Networks, it was a huge contribution to shifting the paradigm of and creating opportunities for more leadership driven, chef owned businesses. Lots of obvious other reasons behind it, but I believe that, the talent is the talent, right? The talent can't, someone once said to me, you're when I was becoming an owner, actually, or a partner, they said, it was a very successful business person. They said, you're going from being the artist to now the art dealer. And it's a very
Yes.
different, it's really stuck with me for quite some time, because, you have to think through so many different things as a chef. And a lot of chefs, I can speak for myself anyway, we're not very good at compromise, or I'm not very good at compromising, because I won't, the quality for, say, a financial, reason.
Yes.
There's challenges that could down the line that way. I've learned through crawling over broken glass that I've broken myself, so to speak, how to like, take my lumps and learn the hard way, the right way, whatever you want to say, made mistakes. But ultimately, as a chef who's super passionate about his craft, but I'm also now super passionate, and quite frankly, I feel I'm really good at it, being an owner and and a leader and a business. In some ways and I know some ways where I'm really not good, what my weaknesses are, and I'm fine with that, because I find the people that can, or I seek the people out that can offset those weaknesses. For example, I'm a sucker for beautiful food, and whatever that might be, the very best quality. And that is just so opposed, can be challenging to anyone that's really good with numbers and money. And I need to surround my controller, gives me great direction. My chefs will say no when I'm ordering certain things. I'm that guy, which
Got it.
where the conflict can be, and as I completely understand the business owner, the finance person wanting to take the reins from the chef. So it can be a real challenge and a real battle.
Got it.
So finding the right balance, between, the right team. Like I have an amazing partner that, we have a great arrangement in the way that I run the business. We consult with one another on things, but they let me run the business.
100%. No, I love what you said there about, you're going from an artist to an art dealer. I think that's a great analogy for this. I mean, this is perfect. And I think a lot of people, as you're developing into your career, that happens in quite a few different industries, right?
Sure.
Even again for me, right? When I think first started my business, I was a freelancer. Then we grew into the agency role, and so every industry I think deals with that. But that's really cool. And I've always thought, I mean, it's interesting, right? Because I've always thought, if you have the chef experience, if you know what it's like to work front of house, back of house, working in the restaurant space, and you're the owner, I would imagine you're going to have a leg up on someone who has no experience in that. I just imagine, some people just mention, well, I got a fresh perspective, and I'm like, I don't know how relevant that is. I mean, the restaurant space is so incredibly different, than any other industry, honestly, for the matter. But anyway, I've always seen this and always so curious about it,
Yes. Candidly, making being an investor in a restaurant, whether you're, depending on whatever your percentage is, the money is so important. You can't do too much without it for all the needs, obviously, of a restaurant, which,
absolutely.
But
And so now you have, is it 4 locations open, right? Or is it still 3?
So I have the Cottage in Westport, and I have Oko in Westport, and Oko in Rye, New York. And now I just 2 weeks ago, actually the day before the anniversary of the closing of all the restaurants for the, on the 16th. So on the 15th, I had a deal announced where I have a Cottage going to the top of Greenwich Avenue in Greenwich.
Nice. Very cool.
2 and 2 Okos by, within this operating, knock on wood, in the year.
That's amazing. And during this time, I mean, that's an incredible accomplishment. That's so cool. I love that.
Thank you.
What is a lot of restaurateurs I hear speak of going from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 locations seems to be a huge feat and accomplishment. It seems to be like something incredibly difficult. I mean, especially going from 1 to 2, you're doubling the size, right? And then again, 2 to 4, you're doubling again. What's that experience been like for you? How have you coped with that?
1 to 2 was the most difficult. Adding the third was a feeling of, the all common word these days, the popular word of scaling. So it felt like I could actually I felt the advantages of what it is like to scale, to take without by the way, without feeling complacent and like I'm just cut and pasting, because I can't do that. I mean, there's a balance of taking. So we took go, and I have the same architect, amazing architect, designer, general contractor. Actually, now I'm using the same general contractor for the next the cottage, but a graphic designer, lawyer, accountant, like all of those things, they all come with new challenges and new opportunities. That and I have to say, having a I don't know if a bench is the right word, but it's pretty amazing the talent that I have of the people that I just mentioned. And that's not even counting my executive chef for the company that now I have a company large enough. I just promoted him to executive chef, Christian Wilkie, who's amazing. And Ralph Leon, who's our director of beverage and hospitality, and then our controller. So I have like an executive team of and myself of 4 that will oversee. And, we are amortized over all 4 restaurants that, and we basically are the vision, the operations, the logistics for them. And that's where it's now starting to get, I don't want to say easier, but just a hell of a lot more efficient and easier to stay and be focused on it.
100%.
Having the first one cottage was great. We was sailing along. When I did a new concept, by the way, that I've never done, Japanese, and that was the toughest. It was the most rewarding, probably, because, well, not most, but it was super rewarding because it was very well received, but the risk was really high.
Got it. Got it.
But by the way, Brad, I'll get just as stressed out and put just as much pressure on myself to open the 4th once it comes to it.
Yeah.
I don't, because you need that healthy anxiety, I guess.
100%. No, it is. No, I would say, yeah, for sure. I mean, here's the thing. I think in all kinds of businesses, right? And especially during COVID, we've all faced a high level of anxiety, right? But the matter is not whether we get anxiety or not, or the stresses or not, it's how we respond to it, not react, right?
Well said. Very well said.
Right? That's what it is. You can expect that things are going to happen in good ways, negative ways, curveballs, whatever the case. But how do we respond to these things? It sounds like whatever the case. I remember in the beginning of this interview, you said that you feel blessed and grateful. I think that's a great thing. I mean, something that I always think in general in business and life is being more grateful, right? Like, I mean, one thing I've noticed over the last year, which I'm sure you've noticed too, is, God, I mean, it just seems like left and right, everyone's complaining about something all the time now. Oh, the business is down. This is down.
Yeah.
What this is that. Oh, whatever the case. Be grateful. There's a lot to be grateful for too. Right? We need that. We need more of that.
It's the same, that it's kind of somewhat synonymous to it's not what happens in life, it's how you deal with it. Same concept, because it's going to happen. Things are, you're going to you're going to get all focused on you set your GPS and you got your route all mapped out, and you just better be ready. This is a business strategy that I live by. I am very organized, very detailed and focused, but you have to be super ready to go off road and
100%.
You know what I mean? Because it's never going to be just like that, perfectly mapped out.
Something I always think about too is when you look at each challenge in business, look at it more so as an opportunity to get ahead of the competition, is what we tell our clients too. Hey, absolutely. We're all going through shit, but how are we going to get over this and make that an opportunity and a leg up on our competition? Hey, our competition is going out of business. Hey, that's unfortunate, for them. I feel for their employees and their team and their staff and everyone, but also because they're now crumbling because of this, that opens up opportunity for us to service now that many more customers in the area. Right. Yeah. So,
totally. And no one out there, nor are you suggesting, is doing it with, without compassion. I mean, we've simply put our heads down, once during COVID from the very beginning, because now there's the reference to the COVID era, right? As if we're out of it. But, there was such a great call for me to lead, but to lead not as a chef, to lead just simply as a leader and try to see, because that's what I'm so used to. I'm so used to the throws and all the experiences of what I need to be reacting to in a kitchen environment. This went so far beyond. This went so into like the care of how people are, like, does someone need help financially? Does someone need help, staff wise, with food? We set up a meal train for all of our staff. It was like 60 some odd people that 2 times a week that get a family of fed for a family of 4. So they could stretch out to like 3 or 4 days, worth of food for themselves. And we had a train literally, because we closed 2 of the restaurants, kept Oko, Westport just doing to go, which was incredibly well supported and successful during that period. And to be able to have this meal train going and keep everybody 95% of our staff return to work. We used our PPP money in the right way. That supported the going forward with our businesses and the health of the businesses and the health of our staff. So it was really just a lot of really, I think in hindsight, good decisions that benefited the future. It was a long view. I think having a long view then and now is important.
Totally. Brian, how do you, it sounds like obviously you said going from 1 to 2 locations was the hardest part. And I'm sure part of that was figuring out your systems, figuring out the operations, doubling the size of your business, finding the right people. A big thing that I hear all the time in the restaurant industry, a major problem in general, is just finding good people, right? Finding good people, getting them trained. How do you go about finding good people and training your staff?
I like to say luck favors the prepared. I've been in this industry for well over 30 years, and it's just a common thing. There's highs and lows of a surplus of really good people, or even just the availability of people that are showing up. Honestly, I empower everyone who's hired in any of the restaurants. I definitely interact with before they're hired and such. But I want the management, each silo now, each restaurant has their own silo, their own management team, and I try to empower them, through hopefully a cohesive culture that between all 3 restaurants, and certainly our standards and ethos of bringing in people that make sense for what we're, they don't have to have all the skills, but they have to have the aptitude, the right attitude. We'll teach them the rest, because it's easier to teach what we want them to, embrace. And of course, if they have certain skill sets that they can complement and even, grow or add to what we're doing, we're open for that. But other people than just myself making these decisions, and each restaurant attracting through their own culture, their own style. Like down in Rye, Marissa, our general manager, and Facidio, our chef. They have such an incredible, their own little culture that I've learned how to foster and not get in the way of and micromanage. It's so amazing to watch how they attract their set of people, their type of their employees, their staff, and it's incredibly rewarding, because I get to see the fruits of their labors. It's really nice.
100%.
It's always a challenge, but it's also, needless to say, when you're doing well, like servers are making money, and when we're able to pay a really nice, a strong wage, which we do, that helps.
That helps a lot. Yeah. That's the thing too, right? Employees want to be always growing and developing, and what better place to go work at a company that's growing and developing, right? No one wants to work at a restaurant that is stagnant in growth. They probably see someone like yourself, hey, multiple locations opening up. This guy is on the rise. This thing is awesome. So I get it.
I hope so, because then you get people that are jazzed. They're not, it's, you just don't want to find, someone, it's too hard of an industry, especially in the kitchen, in my view, to just have a job. I get it.
100%.
Some people, but to really be passionate about it, we have a lot to offer in that regard. So, we're full of passion and excitement for new things, and not just doing like we're doing another cottage, but it'll look and feel like a cottage in its own space. It'll have the same menu format, but it definitely will have its own chef with me driving and pushing the envelope on their own as best as, in their own direction. It's not just a cut and paste,
100%. And I think I saw one of your kids just run up the stairs just now. I know is it, I know obviously, since COVID, you said your kids are doing school from home, homeschooling and everything. How's that been as an adjustment for you as a business owner? And then also in general, how do you balance just family life, work life? Because especially in the restaurant industry, obviously, a lot of the clients we talk to on a regular basis, they're like, man, I'm in the restaurant by 7 a.m. I'm out by 11 p.m. oftentimes, and how do you balance it?
So I was actually just recently had a similar question asked in an interview, and it was a written one, and I was happy to say that I've been truly sorry. Let me turn my phone. I've been fearful when in this career for since I was 13 years old. I've been always fearful of when I became a dad, and I didn't become a dad until I was 46. So I was always worried that I would have such a challenge to be able, would I have enough time for my children? Because I'd want the time, and I wouldn't sacrifice that, so I'd sacrifice my career. And it just so happens that in the 7 years that my boys have, been walking this planet, I've opened what will be 4 restaurants in that amount of time. So paradoxically, it's actually allowed me, through the success of the restaurants, lots of hard work, but I've been with them way more time than I could ever have imagined. Amazing. I've been able to really, it is the craziest, again, paradox and blessing. And, I'm not really open for lunch other than one restaurant 3 days a week pre-COVID, Oko was. So I'm here with them since they were born. And I make the time. I choose my priorities, and I actually have an incredibly well-balanced career and home life. What would that have been like in my 30s or early 40s? The timing was just right for me, because I'm sure there were times where it would have been really tough. But this is, and I have to totally shout out to my staff. I mean, my when emergencies happen and stuff like that, I'm there. But I mean, I'm always there, but I'm saying, like, it would pull me in deeper where but right now, and for quite a long time, I've been able to really manage and run the company as I see fit, with my staff, and be able to include my children as the number one priority in my life.
I love that. That's awesome, man. That's really, really cool. Yeah. Very cool. And Brian, how do you get better in general? Do you have any mentors you look up to? Do you read any books? How do you personally get better as a business leader and also as a chef?
I definitely, I love that question, because I think there's I've been called the most insecure, cocky person. So by loving it's because I'm never ever like settled. I mean, I'm peaceful and happy, but I'm never arrived in like, oh, we're there. There's always a bit of get up and what's the fight today, or not, what's the win today, what's the growth today, in addition to just, which, by the way, as of late, my growth has been finding that piece with empowering all of those around me in terms of my management staff to really do it, and letting go. Like, that's the hardest part that I've found in growth outside the kitchen, is to not be in a kitchen. Like, when I left the cottage, I'll get back to that answer, I promise. When I left the cottage to do Oak, all of a sudden I had the cottage being run by my sous chef, who did an amazing job, but I was terrified. I had to detach. Totally. Yeah. So, like, detachment and I read a fair amount of war related business. There's 38 rules of strategies of power and 48 rules of war. These 2 books that I read, they're kind of riffs off of The Art of War as they apply to business strategies. And I love. Wait, can you repeat those 2 books for me one more time? That sounds really awesome. Do me a favor, Google check me there. It's either the 38 they're upstairs, the 38 strategies of war and the 48 rules of power, or I just might have the numbers. I always confuse the 2. So 38 strategies of war. The 33 strategies of war. Yeah, there you go. And it's by Green. And I love short reads, and they're just really great case studies that are derived from the original Art of War, and they just help.
Nice.
Yeah, it's just it's a, and then I like to read like Good to Great. I like Ray Dalio's book and Principles. And I also love to surround myself. Very fortunate through our industry to meet some incredible business leaders in Westport and when I was in Bedford and in New Canaan. I've just been very, very fortunate, as well as importantly now I really like to so I read a lot of that in addition to cookbooks nonstop, but the mentors around me also are my family, my for sure, but along the way, like just lots of just people that I've become friends with that are running large hedge funds or whatever type of company, and to get myself out of just the restaurant paradigm and think more outside of.
No, I think that's cool. Well, two things there. First of all, what you said is getting yourself sometimes out of the restaurant out of the paradigm to kind of expand your mindset on things. I think that's really, really awesome. I actually interviewed someone about a month and a half ago. His name's Adam Bossy, and he's a coffee maker that services restaurants and other obviously retail stores and whatever. And he just opened his first coffee shop in New York, and he travels quite a bit to kind of get inspired. And he's like, I need to remove myself from the business, kind of reset my mindset on what I'm doing. I need a change of pace. And so I think a lot of people forget that. Like people get into doing the same thing over and over again. And, I was actually on a call with someone, this was like 6 months ago. And this restaurateur tells me, I have 30 years experience. And the guy, he's had one restaurant concept. He's had this goal of opening a second for so long, so many years. And, I said, I really don't want you to get offended by this question here, but do you have 30 years of experience, or do you have 30 years of doing the same thing year after year after year? And it got him thinking. He was like, holy crap. I mean, you got to get out of the typical mold you're in, or you're just going to stick to where you're at. Which I thought was interesting. It's something to think about. And it's like, I was like, please don't get offended by this. So this is something that I really want you to think about seriously. And he took it to heart. And I don't know how he's doing now. We didn't working with him, but let's, maybe I'll check in with him.
I think it's great advice. Just because you're doing the same thing, one way over and over. I'll use my golf game. I've consulted for hotels, right? And they give me all the clubs and all the free golf I want, and I play as much as I want, and I enjoy it. But I suck because I'm doing the same thing over and over.
I suck too, by the way.
There you go. But I enjoy it. But it's the same. It's the same idea. Like just because you're doing, it becomes rote, and having the diversification for me of two different concepts, right?
Yeah.
Different. But there's a clear connection that it's coming from me and my staff now, as far as Cottage and Oko. That has, between that, at that time frame, I just started becoming a business owner more than a chef, not more than a chef, but that's also been the greatest challenge for me. I had this kind of, that probably speaks for a lot of chefs, that once you start having to, and I'm sorry to break it to those that, like, some guests will be like, oh my gosh, you're not behind the stove. When I opened the Cottage, I was behind that stove, 7 shifts. We were open 7 shifts, and I was there from 8 a.m. that year, nonstop, that 1 year.
Wow.
And you grow, well, which is normal. I mean, I used to be, like most of us, 80, 90 hours a week was just an average week. And you find yourself working. I remember working when I started working like a 12-hour day, 5 days a week, I felt incomplete. Like I was just not putting enough on the table.
Yeah.
And when you're done, and this is like historically like in San Francisco, and then then you give your notice. As the executive chef, you're moving on. They're pissed off at you because you're leaving, and the thousands of hours you just logged are gone. You did what you did, but you can't get that back. So I think that whole quantity of work is a thing of the past, as far as the expectation that a chef should just be worked to death and have no life and no balance and not have the same beauty and ability to enjoy everything that a guy
Totally. It's like
on Wall.
why are we working at the end of the day? Well, hopefully we end up working in a profession that we really enjoy, which it sounds like obviously you love what you do, which is amazing. I mean, I truly believe if you love what you do and you're making money, you're that's winning life.
Totally.
That's awesome. That's totally winning life. But I feel like, I don't know. I feel like it's such an East Coast thing. I feel like you East Coast guys just work like crazy hours compared to West Coast people.
I can agree. You got my power cord upstairs? Out of the bed. Thanks, babe.
No worries. So the other thing you mentioned, obviously I know you like these war books and you like how business is relatable to war. I love that, by the way. And I feel like I kind of have a similar mindset on it. But what has been something that maybe you got from the book, or how do you approach business in a way that is similar to war?
I mean, I think it's just, and I'm not a proponent, by the way, of like actual war, just for the record, at all. I think it's more like some of the very classics of like knowing, go around the mountain and preserve your resources for when you're going to need them, and don't fight head on if it's a losing battle. Don't fight something. Don't go after, for example, a business deal just because you want it. Go after that business deal because it's the right deal, because it's going to make your life better, make your financial partners, thank you. Awesome. Thank you, babe. It's going to make your partner's money. It's going to be a successful endeavor, not just a passion play. So for analogous to like preserve your resources, wait it out. I'll say that about during COVID, like that was a really like good way to look at how to close the restaurants, when to reopen them. I waited until I was ready to reopen them, not just because the governor said it was okay to open. I didn't reopen until we were ready, until we felt that we had everything and all the best practices fully lined up, and it was the right time of year. So we waited a month after we were allowed to open the cottage in Oco. So that's a good example of like just kind of hold steady. Don't get too antsy just to get back at it. It worked. Got it. Other people, let other people do it. Like, I'm not in a rush. I'm not racing other people to see how fast I can rebound. Again, it's a long view, a long game here. And to me, it was myopic to just think you're going to like open up and just start ringing the register again. Sometimes it requires just much more time to mend the bones in that broken leg or arm than to just get going. So we were lucky to so I just like that kind of thought process again outside the restaurant world, and thinking about like Good to Great's another really good book. Just like how to bring in other people's my team's advice. I tried to not make any real individual decisions that just came from me. We really had the proper brain
100%.
trust.
So Brian, obviously you've had a lot of experience in this industry, which is fantastic. Obviously, very, very clear. What do you think when you were first getting into this space, what's one thing, maybe you wish you had known when you first began your career?
Getting into the space of this industry?
Yeah. When you're first starting your career in the space.
Ooh. I mean, in hindsight, I would have taken the advice that I was just kind of talking about, which is, don't become a workaholic. If that's the a workaholic. I don't know the true definition of that, but I personally, it was my sport throughout, junior high school. It was my sport, and I mean that literally. It was a place where I went to instead of football and all that, I kind of gave all that up in ninth grade to when I fell in love with this. And that was wonderful. I tried to compete toward the Olympics, tried to do all these, the culinary Olympics, all that stuff. So that's a great passionate thing I wasn't much into academics as a kid, and it was really good for me. But I think what I would do differently is certainly try to find a much better balance in life early on. Yeah. In terms of, because it was so widely understood. thankfully, by the way, I never fell into like the partying lifestyle of,
Yeah,
of that type of, part of our industry, which is out there, not for everybody, but obviously,
totally.
but yeah, I think I would have probably balanced it out better. I was fortunate to go to school for business as well, in addition to the culinary institute. So I had that was really, really a nice part of my youth to have, a college experience,
Totally.
and balance it out. But I think more of that would have probably been better.
So you said you lucky that you didn't fall into the party space. So yeah, I have seen that quite a bit too. And another guest I had on the podcast was like, he was falling into that space, trying to pursue his career as a restaurateur. And he said, he's totally sober at this point. And he's like, if I hadn't done that, there's no way I'd accomplish what I had today. No way. And I think that's something to be said. And I'm not saying I'm an advocate for hey, everyone should be sober and that's it. But but I think like you said, it's balance, right? It's balance. You get these guys who just fall into it. They fall into it, and then they wonder why they're not growing. Well, that's why.
And I don't think, from my perspective, it's not about necessarily wishing to rewrite a story, but having the presence of mind, certainly right now, to how to write it forward, how to write it going forward, how to learn from it and how to appreciate, because it really has taken a lot of time, even today, literally, to not feel as if I'm neglecting, because you have going to be 4 restaurants where everyone, like, my identity becomes about a little therapy session here. My identity becomes about like being a chef. Like, everyone knows me. I'm the one cooking. I'm the one. But let me tell you, I've become. I look back at how I was as a chef and leader, and I'm a different person as a leader. While I'm not just trying to do this, while lead all those around me, because 100%. It's like cooking.
No, I think. It is. I think one of the toughest skill sets to become a business leader, because when you're mastering your own craft, you have full control over what you do. When you become a business owner, you're not working in the business, you're working on the business, and you have to relinquish a lot of these duties to your staff. And that's a hard thing for a lot of people.
And plus completely, and you have to accept that, or at least I do, that they're going to, it's going to come back. You're going to entrust in people. You're going to work with them to the best of what you provide as far as your vision. Your clear vision is essential. If you don't give a clear vision, you're not going to get anything close to it coming back as far as what the results you're looking for. But even if you give the clearest vision to the most receptive, highly intelligent, creative person, it's still going to come back from them from their DNA, so to speak. So you have to accept that. You have to be able, and it took me a while, and I'm finally there-ish, where you're able to harness that and let them grow. And basically you start producing others, so to speak, with a common vision. It's kind of like, and I'm not a big sports guy, but I'm big at analogies and metaphors. It's like going from being the quarterback to the coach to the owner.
Totally.
And you can have it all. And I love being the quarterback, whatever, but at the same time, you have to hire right, you have to instill and inspire, and then which I am finally really, really, really love it. I really love that whole process, and you find the right fit. And I go to each restaurant and work on dishes with the staff, and chefs are bringing me food to taste, like, which is how I grew up, like as the sous chef, bringing it to the chef owner. Now I'm the guy that we're talking. We go through the whole the ideation, the creative process verbally.
Totally.
We go stuff. My chef at Oko Westport, John, who's super talented young guy, and he gets it. Like, we'll talk through food, and we've worked together for years cooking. But then we'll just talk food. He'll bring me food, and this is going to sound extremely lame, but I'll taste it, and I'll be like, it tastes not exactly, but it tastes like I just made it.
Yeah.
Which is wild. I mean, it's him.
That's so cool. No, 100%.
Brian,
what do you think? What about this? So, like, obviously you've been very successful. This industry, though, as you know, is competitive as it gets. What do you feel like is something that just really separates you from the others? I mean, obviously you're definitely a hard worker. Your food looks amazing. But if you had to identify maybe one, maybe two things that just really separates you from your competition, what would those things be?
I mean, I don't ever really knowingly try to compete with anybody. That's the truth, except for be it Bobby Flay. But like I just compete with myself. Like I'm pretty hard on myself about, my standards. So I think the standards that I keep are maybe a little pigheaded in the sense that I don't give them up, and I always just, and the originality of my food, as much as food can be original. But just, I think the daily, I don't really know how to answer the question other than, the daily.
Is it, you're saying maybe the consistency?
I was going to say the daily consistency of looking at food, and you can see if it needs salt sometimes you can, or just like not giving up in on any step of the way of what the right disciplines that you ask to have in place by your team across the board. Don't give up on that. Just because I'm super busy and I'm driving from this restaurant to this restaurant or whatever, all the beautiful, hey, look at this new dish. That's great, but you can't stray from this. And that, you could call that a dictator or whatever you want. I joke about that, but there is a certain core set of disciplines in the kitchen, in the dining room, all throughout in the way that we treat our staff, like human resources. I have I'm involved in all of it. And I just think being true to your vision and being consistent is so important, because you come up with great ideas all day long, make a great dish once. It means little in the scheme of things, but the consistency is really everything.
Totally. I once heard a mentor of ours years ago say, you have to have monk-like discipline to succeed, to master your craft, to stick to it. And I think that's kind of what you're talking about here is having that monk-like discipline to really strive for that perfection and greatness that you should be day in and day out, every day, in everything you do. Right.
Great.
Brian, what about this? You've had a lot of experiences. What would you say is your overall biggest failure in your career, and what'd you learn from it?
How many failures am I allowed to talk about?
Yeah, I know, right?
No. I would say my biggest failure was probably in San Francisco. I was a chef of an ill-fated brasserie that I wanted to go in one direction. I was piss and vinegar. I was just like, 28 years old, or 29, 30, something like that. And I'd been the executive chef of a very successful place called Bix. And then I went on to open this restaurant. I just won't mention the name. And I was part of the startup, and I knew in my gut it was wrong. The owners were really, really wanted it to be just a gastro pub. And I was trying to make it my version of basically Bouchon, and I, went to Paris, studied there for a little bit. I was just so into it. But I think I knew the whole time that I was constantly fighting uphill, like a uphill battle and losing.
Yeah,
and
totally.
You take that paired with someone at that time who I was just, I was a terrible manager of people. I was a great cook and talented in the kitchen, but not a good manager of people, because I was just so blindly just wanted success for the restaurant that I didn't know how to really achieve it now that I look back. And how to be diplomatic and so on and so forth. And I should have just left the job. And what happened was, we had a review from the San Francisco Chronicle that was so scathing. It was an evisceration. And I look back and it was accurate, because it was just the restaurant was just overrun. It was just a collective mess.
Totally.
And I handled it so poorly, like emotionally. I was so wrecked by that review. I felt scarlet letter, blah, blah, blah. So I think that would be my biggest, that was definitely, because it set into motion a pretty, it unearthed a lot about, like,
totally
that level of criticism. It's that at that, I remember the internet was like becoming a big thing at the time, and I was getting this is that long ago, and I was getting emails from like my cousin in Connecticut, like I heard what happened, and this is like you didn't have that bandwidth yet. I mean, you did. It was just, and I was like, oh shit, I'm really. So I was devastated by that, and to pick myself kind of back up from it. Sorry,
no worries.
Sorry.
But
so that
was
was
interesting.
it.
But it sounds like you knew from the beginning that this wasn't going to go exactly how you wanted to. It's like your gut told you this wasn't the best idea. And I think the valuable lesson there too is also following your gut. I think sometimes your gut tells you things that you can't really see all the answers, but it's telling you to move in at least some direction, and we got to follow it. I mean, I'm huge on that too.
What's
Right?
that?
I said, I do the same thing. My gut will tell me something and I'll just keep doing it no matter the case. And then it'll come back later and say, oh, that's why, following your gut, following your instinct, I think obviously is so important.
No,
anyway,
gut instinct, honestly, I swear by it. And
yeah.
So I think it's
100%.
both following your gut instinct and it's not what happens. And I didn't deal with it well. So, guys, please. Thanks, please. Sorry.
No worries. And Brian, anyway, today was so fantastic. It's been such an awesome time getting to know you, have this conversation with you. For any of our listeners that maybe want to look your restaurants up, look you up in general, where can listeners connect with you online?
Oh, so we have thecottagewestport.com.
Yep.
And then we Oko Kitchen is the website, okokitchen.com.
Very cool. And what about yourself? Are you on social media personally?
Yeah, I believe our publicist, she knows all the codes and all the passwords and all the places.
Yeah.
Instagram and Facebook and all that good stuff.
Perfect. All right, guys. Well, hey, if you do want to look the restaurants up again, look up those sites. We'll be sure to have those URLs below in this podcast in this section. But anyway, Brian, thank you so much for your time today. This was fantastic, and we'll be in touch real soon. Thanks a lot.
All right. Take care. See you now.
All righty. See ya.